The poor mother lived in a small, broken house at the edge of the town. The roof leaked when it rained, and the walls were thin and cold in winter. Every morning, she woke up before the sun rose. Her body felt tired, but her heart pushed her forward because she had 2 children who depended on her. She looked at their sleeping faces and promised herself again that she would never give up, no matter how hard life became. Her husband had died years ago after a long illness. Since that day, her life had changed completely. There was no one to share the burden with her, no strong shoulders to lean on. She became both mother and father to her children. She worked wherever she could find work. Some days she washed clothes for rich families. Other days she cleaned houses or carried heavy baskets in the market. The money was always little, but her needs were many. The children were still young, but they understood more than she thought. They never asked for toys or new clothes. When they were hungry, they stayed quiet, hoping their mother would not feel sad. This made her heart ache even more. At night, when the children slept, she sometimes cried softly so they would not hear her. Her tears fell on the thin pillow, but she wiped her face quickly and told herself that tomorrow would be better. One cold morning, she went to the market to look for work. The air was sharp, and her hands were red from the cold. She asked shopkeepers if they needed help, but most of them turned her away. Some did not even look at her face. She felt small and invisible. Still, she kept walking, step by step, because stopping was not an option. Near the end of the market, she saw an old woman struggling to carry a large bag. Without thinking, the poor mother rushed to help her. She lifted the bag and carried it to the old woman's home. The old woman thanked her and offered her a small payment. It was not much, but the poor mother accepted it with gratitude. On her way home, she bought a little bread and some vegetables. That night, the children ate with smiles on their faces, and the poor mother felt a small warmth in her chest. Days passed like this, slow and heavy. Some days were better, some worse. There were days when she found no work at all. On those days, she boiled water and told the children it was soup, adding only a few vegetables to give it some taste. She told them stories to make them forget their hunger. Her voice was gentle, and her stories were full of hope, even when her own heart felt empty. One evening, her son asked her a question that stayed with her. He asked if life would always be so hard. She looked at his eyes, full of fear and hope at the same time. She did not want to lie, but she also did not want to break his spirit. She held him close and told him that hard times do not last forever, and that strong hearts can change their future. As she said these words, she wished with all her heart that they were true. The next day, she heard about a small factory looking for workers. She walked a long distance to reach it. The building was old, and the work looked difficult, but she did not care. She only cared about earning money to feed her children. She waited in a long line with many other people. When it was finally her turn, the manager looked at her worn clothes and tired face. He asked her a few questions and then told her to start work the next day. That night, she could not sleep. Her body was tired, but her mind was full of thoughts. She worried about the long hours and the hard work. She worried about leaving her children alone. But she also felt a small light of hope. This job meant regular pay, even if it was small. It meant bread on the table and maybe, one day, school books for her children. The work at the factory was harder than she imagined. The hours were long, and the noise was loud. Her hands hurt, and her back ached. Sometimes she felt like giving up. But every time she thought about stopping, she remembered her children's faces. She remembered their smiles when they had enough to eat. That memory gave her strength. One day, while working, she fainted from exhaustion. The other workers gathered around her. When she woke up, she felt ashamed and afraid she would lose her job. But instead, a kind woman from the factory helped her and shared her food. This small act of kindness reminded the poor mother that even in a hard world, there were still good people. When she returned home that evening, her children ran to her and hugged her tightly. In that moment, she forgot all her pain. She knew her life was still full of struggles, but she also knew she was not weak. She was strong in a quiet way, a strength built from love, sacrifice, and endless hope. As she lay down to sleep that night, she whispered a silent prayer. She prayed for health, for strength, and for a better future for her children. She did not ask for riches or comfort. She only asked for the chance to keep going. And in the quiet darkness of her small house, the poor mother closed her eyes, ready to face another day, carrying her silent struggle with courage and love. The poor mother's life slowly began to change, though the road ahead was still difficult. After many weeks at the factory, her body grew stronger, even if the work remained hard. Every morning, she woke before dawn, prepared simple food for her children, and left the house while the sky was still dark. She walked with tired steps, but her heart carried a quiet determination. She knew that every day of work was a step toward survival. The children noticed the change in their mother. She smiled more often, even when her eyes looked tired. She spoke about the future with more confidence. She told them that education was the key to a better life, and that they must never stop learning. Though she could not always help with schoolwork, she listened carefully when they talked about their lessons. Her attention made them feel important and loved. Money was still short, but it came regularly now. She planned every coin carefully. She bought only what was necessary and saved a little whenever she could. Sometimes, she skipped meals so her children could eat more. She never complained. To her, their full stomachs were more valuable than her own comfort. At night, she checked their school books, even if she did not understand all the words. She traced the letters with her fingers and felt proud of their progress. One rainy afternoon, the factory closed early due to a power problem. The poor mother decided to walk home slowly, enjoying the rare free time. On the way, she noticed a small shop with a sign asking for help. It was a tailor's shop, old and dusty, but filled with the sound of a sewing machine. She stopped and spoke to the owner, a middle-aged man with kind eyes. He asked if she knew how to sew. She admitted that she only had basic skills, learned long ago. The man nodded and told her to come the next day for a trial. That night, hope filled her heart again. Sewing was hard, but it was quieter than factory work and less damaging to her body. The next day, after finishing her factory shift, she went to the tailor's shop. Her fingers were slow at first, but they remembered the old movements. She worked carefully, focusing on every stitch. The tailor watched her silently and then offered her part-time work in the evenings. Her days became longer, but her future looked brighter. In the mornings, she worked at the factory. In the evenings, she sewed clothes. Her hands were often sore, and her eyes burned from strain, but she felt proud. She was building something for her children, something more than just survival. She was building stability. As months passed, the tailor trusted her more. He taught her new skills and paid her a little extra. With this money, she bought better food and warm clothes for winter. She also saved enough to repair the leaking roof. When the rain came, the water no longer fell onto the floor. This small change brought great comfort. The house felt safer, more like a home. One evening, her daughter brought home a paper from school. It was a notice about a scholarship program for children from poor families. The poor mother read the paper again and again. The words filled her with fear and excitement. She worried about the process, the forms, and the requirements. But she decided to try. She gathered all the documents, asked for help where she could, and submitted the application. Weeks passed with no news. Life continued as usual, full of work and worry. Then one day, her daughter came running home with tears in her eyes. For a moment, the poor mother feared something bad had happened. But the tears were of joy. Her daughter had been selected for the scholarship. The school fees would be covered, and there would even be help with books. The poor mother sat down slowly, overwhelmed by emotion. She felt a deep sense of relief mixed with gratitude. All the long nights, the aching hands, and the silent sacrifices had led to this moment. She hugged her daughter tightly, whispering words of encouragement and love. That night, the family celebrated with simple food, but their hearts were full. The news spread in the neighborhood. People began to see the poor mother differently. They admired her strength and dedication. Some asked her for sewing work, and she accepted what she could manage. Her reputation grew quietly. She did not become rich, but she earned respect, and that respect brought new opportunities. Despite these improvements, she never forgot her struggles. She remained humble and kind. When she saw others in need, she helped in small ways, sharing food or offering kind words. She taught her children the same values, reminding them that success meant nothing if it was not shared with compassion. Years later, the poor mother looked back at her journey. Life was still not easy, but it was no longer hopeless. Her children were growing, learning, and dreaming. She had learned that strength does not always come from power or wealth. Sometimes, it comes from patience, hard work, and love that refuses to break. As she sat by the window one evening, watching the sun set, she felt a quiet peace. She knew that challenges would continue to appear, but she was ready. Her silent struggle had shaped her into a strong woman, and in her heart, she carried a deep belief that no matter how poor a person may be, dignity, courage, and hope can create a future worth fighting for.